Welcome to Attainable Green. I'm Jess, and today we're going to do a What's in Bloom video for the month of April. So this month we're focusing mostly on my Phalaenopsis collection since a lot of them are in bloom. But before we dive into phals, we're going to start with a couple of other species and hybrids that are in bloom currently. So let's begin. The first plant is the Dendrobium China Dream Crystal. Now this plant was featured in a Care Collab video. This is my first Dendrobium nobili type, and I am really loving the flowers and the growth pattern, so maybe I will collect some more in the future. This plant loves a lot of heat and water during the growing season, and during the winter time it likes kind of a winter's rest. So you just back off on the waterings and wait for some of the buds to start appearing before you start watering this plant more regularly and adding fertilizer. This plant had a couple of slug problems, so not all of the buds that were initiated actually bloomed. It lost about a third of its blooms because of the pest problem, but I'm hoping that next year I will remedy that and we'll have a great bloom show. The next plant is the Dendrobium Touch of Gold. Now this is considered a Dendrobium Phalaenopsis type, which basically means that the spikes appear from the top of the plant, and this one does not take a winter's rest. In fact, this plant likes to be watered year-round, and it likes to stay in a warmer temperature range year-round. So during the wintertime, I try to keep this plant indoors, and I put it under lights, and this is the year that it bloomed. It had some problems before, so some of the newer canes are a lot smaller than the previous growths, but I'm working on it this year and it has a new growth. So hopefully I'll be able to grow a nice tall cane and have that one bloom as well. I really like this type because of its twisted petals and sepals, and this is part of the dendrobiums in the antelope group that all have a similar flower shape. The next plant is the Holconopsis Yahwehs little Erik. Now this is a very interesting intergeneric hybrid, and basically it's crossing a Vanda type with a Phalaenopsis type. Overall, it looks very similar to the Vanda parent. This plant has white flowers, and I feel like the most interesting part of the plant is actually the backside of the flowers, where there's a little bit of a pink blush on the sepals. And overall, this plant looks more similar to the Vanda type and less similar to the Sidereya japonica. The next plant is the Phalaenopsis Japonica, or Sidereya japonica. Now I got this plant mostly in a short spike, and so I can't take credit for the blooms, but even so, I definitely appreciate the flowers. This is the first time I got to see the Sidereya japonica in bloom, and it is so refreshing. I really love the look of the petals, and I love the scent as well. The more I look at Phalaenopsis, I think I'm just drawn to the more unusual flowers that this genus provides. I have a couple other varieties of the Sidereya japonica, but none of them are in spike at this time. The next plant is the Phalaenopsis Storchiana variety Nobleus. Now this is considered the yellow form of the Storchiana. The one that I have is more of a pale yellow version. It has the spotting on the sepals, and the petals are nice and flat. Overall, it is a beautiful plant, and I am just really interested in this one. So the next plant is the Phalaenopsis Amopolis. Now I featured this one last month when it was just starting to open up, but this month more of the flowers are in bloom, and as you can tell, there's still a couple more buds yet to open. So I have a feeling that this particular plant is going to be in bloom for a very long time. I'm really liking this species because of how unique the flowers look. It's a little bit different than the standard white phals, even though it is in the background of a lot of those standard white phals in the grocery store. Now the next set of plants are all Phalaenopsis, and they're all my NOIDs. So half of them are rescues that I got when I first started my orchid journey 3 years ago, and the other half are from another rescue that I got last year. So the first 3 NOID plants were from 3 years ago. These plants are finally in bloom, and it's nice to see what the colors are. The small white phal has actually been in bloom last year, so it recovered faster than the other 2 plants, and so this is the second time blooming, and I definitely love the look of the plant. The other white phal and the yellow one with the kind of harlequin spots, those ones took a little bit of time for it to fully recover from my experiments in water culture and just all the mistakes I made learning how to grow these plants. It's really satisfying for me to see the flowers of these plants and know that the plants themselves are in a good, healthy state, and it just gives me a little bit more confidence that I can take care of these plants, and even though it might take a while before they can show their blooms again, it's definitely worth the wait. The other 3 plants are from this past year's orchid rescue. I got a huge box of plants that I have been dealing with mealybugs for, and these plants still kind of have mealybugs. So I am not going to leave the flowers on these plants for very long, but I just wanted to see what the colors are so that I can document them and separate them out. One of the keikis from a mother plant actually bloomed, and it bloomed out this white background with kind of a pink blush on it. And so I let that one just open up its first flower before I cut the spike so that it can just fully root in and grow. Even though it's a keiki and it has enough energy to bloom, I still want to make sure that it has a nice healthy root system before it can bloom again. One other small phal also bloomed, and it also has the exact same look as the keiki. So it has that white background with the pink blush, and so that one was pretty nice. This plant still had a mealybug problem, and it became a little bit more pronounced when the spike was in bloom. So I decided to just take a picture of the plant and then cut off the spike. As for the last plant, this one was also a rescue, and I wanted to see what the flower would look like. This one is actually that purple classic orchid color, and this one also has mealybug problem. As you can see, the mealybugs are actually in the flower itself. I have to cut the spike, treat the plant, and try again. All the rescues that I have came with mealybugs, and I'm still working on cleaning them up so that they don't have mealybugs anymore. But it takes a bit of a process because they get into all the nooks and crannies of all the old leaf joints and things. So it's kind of a continual process. Despite cutting those spikes off early, I think I'm just doing a benefit for the plant because I'm hoping that it will have a stronger root system and it will have faster leaf growth without a spike. I'm still treating it for mealybugs, so hopefully I'll be able to get rid of it this year, and so I don't have a problem with it later on. And also with all of these extra NOIDs, hopefully I'll be able to pass them on once they're free of pests. So that is what's in bloom for the month of April. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, Attainable Green, to follow along on my orchid growing journey. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!